When I record podcasts, I like to stay hydrated. Who knew talking could be so hard? My favourite drink to have to hand is Lifeline's Hydro OG. It's a tried and tested product for me. It helped me and my team complete a 24-hour podcast, giving us the edge that we needed to get over the finish line. So whether you're at the gym, on a bike ride, or just trying to get over that night before, Lifeline's Hydro OG has got your back. Each serving is stocked with all the healthy ingredients and vitamins you could ask for. There are a great range of flavours, and with each serving at only 18 calories, you really can't go wrong. Here at the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast, we like to support local, independent companies and brands, and Lifelines is a product that I am proud to endorse. Go to lifelines.com. Now that's LYFELINEZ.com to find out more. Now, without further ado, here is today's episode. Hi guys, and welcome to the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. This interview you're about to hear was put together very impromptu. It was put together the night before, and in fact, we're gonna start this episode at Highly Flammable at Alex McCarthy's event, Shropshire in Business, and it was a great event. Business-minded people, owners of business, turned up and talked about their businesses and learned an awful lot. Lots of workshopping things to do, lots of tasks to take part in. It was really good, and there were loads of questions and stuff that we had to talk amongst ourselves and learn a lot. And I included one of the questions, a chat with Alex, and a bit of my final thoughts after the event. So that's before this podcast. And I got to say to you, if you're business-minded, if you have a business idea, if you're struggling in business, if you're trying to get a business off the ground, I would highly recommend you taking a look at Shropshire in Business and getting to the next event on the 1st of March. Alex McCarthy is wonderful. She really is. She's a business and life coach, and she's very, very popular in Shropshire. So to get to spend a bit of time in the room with her, listening to her and learning from her is quite a privilege. So here is the audio that I got from Highly Flammable with Verity. Right, so we're at Highly Flammable, me and Verity. Say hi.
Hi.
And we are at a meeting with Alex McCarthy from Shropshire in Business, and we've been asked questions and we've got to write them down. I guess we've got to discuss them in a group. As you can hear, there are people here at Highly Flammable, and the question is, what comes to business? When it comes to business, how do you currently feel and why? And I put peed off. That's the polite way of putting it. I just want to sit behind a mic. I'm a creator, not a business person. Most of it is alien to me. What did you put?
Okay, so I put, I'm excited about opportunities and I'm open to opportunities. I also added that I'm quite unknowledgeable and unsure what to do and where to help.
Yeah, if you could have your own business, what would you like to have?
In my head, I once did a craft stall at the local Christmas fair. I made jewellery.
That's cool.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. It would be something creative. I also used to make and decorate cakes, but at the time I just got a promotion to manage at a children's home, so I had to make the choice one or the other because the cakes was taking up all of my time. So yeah, I chose to stay as a manager or continue as a manager and bin the cakes off because I just didn't have the headspace or time for both. But if I did a business, it would be something creative.
See, I've not got a business mind. I've got a creative mind. I want to just make stuff and then somebody else sell it for me. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. When I used to do, I also used to do nails, like I'm a qualified nail technician. I feel like I've dipped my hand in lots of little things, all creative, and then gone, oh, that's fun, but not knowing how to carry it. So I started doing my friends' nails, and I'd be like, oh, just give me a tenner, a fiver. And with cakes as well, I'd never charge properly, and my friends would be like tearing the hair out, going, Verity, that's a £50 cake. You've just charged 15 quid. I'm like, yeah, I know. I didn't want to charge anymore. So I'm not business minded.
No, we had this idea with my mother-in-law. Because shout out to Gloria, you're amazing. And we had this idea of making Shrewsbury biscuits.
Is that
Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast, Shrewsbury Biscuits.
I'll get my baking cap back on.
And then selling them at events. So we were at Kids Fest in a few weeks, so we could sell them there and make a bit of money for the show. But again, not being business minded, I've never we came up with this idea pre-COVID. So it goes to show you how enthusiastic I am about.
I'm better at cupcakes. I can make you cupcakes.
Shrewsbury Biscuit cupcakes. Shrewsbury Biscuit cupcake. If we can make it work.
I'll practice biscuits. Okay.
Shrewsbury Biscuits. Gotta be.
Shrewsbury Biscuit cupcakes.
I was chatting to some Americans. I was listening to a radio show, and in the chat we were talking about Shrewsbury Biscuits, and people didn't realise it was an actual thing. And then there's also the other confusion in America is they make weird savoury scones. By the way, I'm sorry to our American listeners because I know you're out there. They make savoury scones and they call them biscuits. Have you seen them?
That's just language barriers. That baffles me.
Everything's a cookie to them. Cookie.
So they make scones and call them biscuits.
Yeah.
That's confusing to me.
So the event's finished now with Alex McCarthy. I really enjoyed that. I think you've inspired a few people today.
Thank you. I was actually a little bit nervous tonight.
I didn't get that, not at all.
Not at all, no. I mean, I don't know why really, but I think tonight's group's been epic. And like Stephen said, it's just open-mindedness, collaboration, and being able to make each other feel inspired. So yeah, I've loved it. I'm looking forward to the next one.
What's more intimidating to do, if we can talk about that in a positive light, the intimate one-on-one stuff or the group stuff? What do you find harder to do?
I get something different from both. I think that the group stuff, naturally, you get more nerves because you're standing up, you're commanding the room, you're being the leader. But then in that one-to-one dynamic, sometimes, often it goes a lot deeper and the conversations are more difficult and the questions you have to ask are more difficult. So I don't know. I don't think I have I don't have a preference. I like both. Yeah.
I was just talking about how, I'm proud about how good I am at what I do. But you're the only person to ever crack me halfway through an interview. I remember I just broke and I was just like, oh my God, you're so good at what you do. It's natural to you. Does it feel natural to talk about this, or do you have to go and practice it or, rehearse?
I think it's something that I'm fascinated with, and it's something that I geek out on mindset and personal development for fun. So it just is a bonus that I've created a business that I can get paid for that as well and help people with that same thing. But I really love it. It's a thing that changed my life, and I like to help other people change their lives with it as well. It's getting to know ourselves, isn't it? Our mind, and being curious about the way that we think and why we think. Just be curious.
I love how you've taken... it's almost like a business, I always say business chamber, but I mean those kind of clerical sort of corporate meetings and create a really relaxed version of that, and highly flammable as a venue is kind of good for that, right?
100%. The environment here allows for that informality, and like you said, I think people think business networking, and I get the fear that I don't want to go in a room with loads of people in suits and have this exchange for exchange. I think the business needs to be, especially in a local community like Shrewsbury, is let's break the what's the word I'm looking for? I think that it should be accessible for everybody at all levels and all ages. And this is what these networking meetings are allowing, is it doesn't matter how long you've been in business, it doesn't matter if you're thinking about starting a business, let's bring all of us together. There's not that separation of or hierarchy, which is good.
I brought Verity with me today, you're chatting about, who didn't know anybody really in the room today, and as an experience of somebody who's come in from the outside, how did you find it?
I find it really exciting because a lot of what you were saying about business, so this is a business meeting, isn't particularly relevant to me in business sense, but a lot of it I sort of connected with personally, and I suppose a lot of when you go into business, it is like you said, it's all about your mindset and how you adjust it or how you deal with certain things that might be a roadblock to you. And I found it, I was like, I think my life is a business. Do you know what I mean? It's like
yeah. Your business is an extension of you.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's sort of what I felt. And I thought that was really interesting, really powerful. I've taken the notes on like your journaling. I've been thinking for a while I ought to start doing that because I feel it would just help organise my mind. And yeah, so I found it really interesting. It was wicked. Thank you.
I'm so glad you've loved it. And the journaling is the most powerful and affordable self-reflection tool. If you can't afford a coach, go and get a journal and start writing those things down, because obviously the stuff that comes up, you'll be surprised, hopefully, pleasantly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I use this new notepad. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Inspire.
Great word on it too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for today, and make sure you guys support Alex McCarthy wherever you are. Where can people follow you?
Instagram, Alex McCarthy Coaching, Facebook, Alex McCarthy Coaching, or I've got a lovely new shiny website, which is alexmccarthycoaching.com.
Brilliant. And make sure you come to one of these events, especially if you want to get up in front of people and share. Like, this is one of the things, I'm sorry, I know we've got to go, but like one of the things I brought up is a lot of things I worry about is a lot of what everybody else is worrying about, and this is what it's great to voice and know that everybody else is having those same things, you know.
Well, we are stronger together, and we're much stronger when we can be vulnerable together. And I think you'll look at someone who you might deem as super confident, but they're having 90% of the same mindset struggles and confidence struggles. And I just think if we can open up that conversation, it's exciting that how people might progress and move forwards with that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for tonight, and thanks for inviting us.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you. Yeah, so I've just got driven home. I'm sat outside my apartment now. I was going to leave this bit of audio and add on to it once I know which episode it's going to be in front of, but I feel like I want to get my thoughts while they're sort of fresh in my mind just after that great meeting with Alex McCarthy. Great evening. Like really, really, really took me by surprise. These things I get nervous about. I really do, because, you know, it's one of those cliche things. Nobody likes standing up in front of a room and go, "Hello, my name's Alex and I've got a podcast." You know, people get nervous about that, and I'm good at that stuff more than I realise. So before I go to an event like this, I get nervous. I talk about my social anxiety way too much. But before I come to an event like this, I'm pacing and I'm getting nervous. And I have to say, one of the things that really helped me today is something I learned from Stephen Marshall, another great event that I went to recently. And that was finding your inner, I can't say the word he says, your inner grouch, that thing that holds you back. Taking a few minutes of composure, a bit of breathing. Visualize your inner grouch, your inner thing that's holding you back, and internally give it a warrior cry, a good shout, you know, put it in its place, get up and go and do your thing. I actually did that today, and it really helped. Really, really helped. So thank you, Steve, for teaching me that. Thank you, Alex McCarthy, for this great event. And I would encourage anybody, if you've got a business or you're business minded or you're thinking of starting a business, go to Alex McCarthy's Instagram page, give her a follow, and maybe come to one of these events. You know, Shropshire in business. It really is fantastic. Thank you, Verity, for coming as well. Through Verity, very much in the deep end today. You know, a room full of people she didn't know, but she did amazing. She's great. So thank you, Verity, for joining me. Oh, that was awesome. Thank you so much to Verity for coming with me. It was a great evening. And thank you to Alex McCarthy for putting on a great event. Right now, this episode is about the Writers Lab at Shrewsbury Library. These are a group of writers or progressing writers and, you know, writers of all stages, really. And I'm really excited by this. I know it's been going for a while now. I've just found it. In fact, I heard about the Writers Lab a while ago, but I've never been able to go because it was on a Tuesday, which is when I work. But it was a privilege and an honour to speak to these guys. Thank you to Tracy Morgan for putting it together in such a quick and fantastic manner. It really was great. In fact, I went for a walk around town yesterday, the day after we recorded this, and I bumped into Laura from Raven Bookstore, which is upstairs in the market hall, and she was telling me about some of the amazing ideas that these folks have got, and it sounds really exciting. So if you have a book in you and you can't get onto page, or you can't motivate yourself to do that, or you're looking for ideas, or you want to speak to fellow writers, the Writers Lab just sounds a fantastic idea. It really does. I got some time booked off soon, so I might turn up at one, because I like the idea of it. I'm not really a writer, but I like to speak to writers and other creative people, so I might turn up, and it might inspire me to finally start writing that book of mine. If you listen to the show, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I'll leave you with this episode. I won't go on as much as I did last week. I hope you enjoy it. And here is the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. Hi guys, and welcome to the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. I'm Alex Whiteley. No Verity today. I organised this while she's at work. I spoke to her last night about it. She's like, "What?" But this is a very impromptu interview that's been put together. I want to say a huge thank you to Tracy Morgan for putting this together, and to my guests today, because we organised this like yesterday and last night. So it's been very quickly put together, but it's something that I'm very, very passionate about. The Shrewsbury Biscuit is about promoting Shrewsbury and the amazing people inside it. And I love speaking to authors. As an example, I'm reading Simon Bell's book at the moment, Remembering the Holocaust and the Impact on Societies Today. I know it's Holocaust, I know it's a dark subject, but this is a brilliant book in talking about how the rhetorics of yesterday are kind of bleeding into society today. So please give that a read, and I'll be speaking to Simon tomorrow. So finding local talents and talking about what they do is what I'm really passionate about. And today I'm joined by Joe Shooman and Rachel Lloyd, who have been taking part in Writers Lab, but are also great authors in themselves. So thank you for joining the show, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
Yeah. We'll start off with you, Rachel. Let's talk about you. Where does writing begin for you? When do you suddenly decide you want to become an author?
I always made up stories. I think it was down to my dad, because he used to read me and my sister, who's also in the Writers Lab. He used to always make up stories. He didn't ever read from a book, so he'd always make something up and sit on the end of the bed and tell us a story at the end of the night. And I think it started from there, and that's why me and my sister both tend to do the same thing. And I just always made stories up. And I remember I used to go on to my friends about it. And my one friend must have got really annoyed with me once, because one day I just woke up on Saturday morning and found this thing through the door, and it had a picture of a cat, and it said, "I made up this story about a cat and it kills a mouse." So I got the feeling that I'd driven her to the point of insanity by making up stories. So I've always been interested. But then it just, I went to a summer school about Pride and Prejudice. It's my favourite book. And they asked if I wanted to do the degree course there. And as a mature student, I did. And I studied English. And then instead of a dissertation, I did the writing project. I did a pilot episode. And and then the lab had always been there since it began, and my sister and I came. And it's just always been very encouraging and helped us along the way, and nurtured everything between University Centre Shrewsbury and its brilliant English course, which unfortunately is no more, and the Writers Lab. It's just given me the confidence, because I don't think I brim with the confidence. I'm sure Joe will give a knowing nod here, but it's given me the confidence to pursue it and to do the thing I love, and to really take it somewhere, I think, and hope to.
So is this something that you've stepped into sort of later on in life, but the Writers Lab has sort of helped you come along in that? Is that what, am I right in saying that?
Yes, because although I've always made up stories and I started to enter competitions and things, I hadn't been to a group until then. And I was so glad that it was a really friendly group and a really welcoming group. And anybody could go with any, because I hadn't, at that point, I don't think I'd started my degree either. I hadn't done anything apart from just made up stories. So it really helps with the confidence, because it's such a comfortable and welcoming place, and anybody of any ability, and everybody just knits together really well as a group.
That sounds really, really good, actually. And Joe, I've just been looking online now. You're creator of autobiographies, and you've been writing for years about music. This seems like something that this is your career. This is you, Joe Shooman, author, right? Am I right in saying that?
I guess so, yeah. I mean, just to do a bit of history on the lab, I mean, yes, you're right. I've come from a background of being a journalist. and I was a music journalist. I still am a music journalist, but I'm not as active as I was. But you know, I was the live reviews editor for The Fly. That was a national magazine that used to be. It was brilliant, actually. I really enjoyed it. I worked for Mix Mag. I worked for Record Collector, Metal Hammer, all sorts of people. And you know, when you're just around that sort of scene, you tend to meet people, don't you? You know, I mean, you know this.
Sounds like a dream.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I'm not knocking it. You know, I interviewed Lady Gaga. You know, Lionel Richie, Tom Jones. You know, brilliant. But when you're around the magazines and where things are happening, you tend to get asked to do things. And I got asked to do a book about Trivium, a band called Trivium, about 2006. That was. And then just from there, just kind of that, you know, it absolutely tanked in terms of sales, but the publishers were pleased with it. So, you know, since then I've done 11 altogether on music and technology. And latterly, my recent books have been Would You Rather, which was a kind of stocking filler thing. And so parallel to that, I started working for Shropshire Libraries in about 2016, I think is right. And when I moved to Shrewsbury Library in 2016, 2017, one of the things that Catherine, the manager there, was keen on doing was setting up a writers group. And I thought, well, that seems to work, you know, for me, from my background. So we just started it, and I've got to give good credit to Stephen Palmer, who is another author you probably know from
Steve very well.
Yeah,
Steve.
He was very heavily involved with the lab for a couple of years and has moved on to bigger and better things. And you know, but he was very instrumental in shaping the early days. And so over the last 3 years, really, it's developed as the group has developed, and it's always been important to me as the sort of coordinator of it, or as the library representative, that it's all the big decisions, all the direction, all of the content comes from the group. It's not a top-down thing where anybody goes, we're going to do this, you know, we're going to do a book now. It's more like, okay, what do we want to do collectively? And the lab is there, as Rachel says, to give people a welcoming, supportive space in which to talk about writing. Because I always feel that, you know, as Rachel's experience, you know, as illustrated quite clearly, it's easy to put your own writing ambitions on the back burner, and then life gets in the way, you know. And so the lab is designed to say, hang on a minute, for this hour every 2 weeks, and that's all it is, an hour every 2 weeks, we are coming together to talk about writing because we are writers and we're not ashamed of it.
Is this to share sort of excerpts of what you've written, or is it to find a solution to that thing you can't get a grasp of? Is it a think tank where you guys, you know, take ideas and try, like you said, try and create something as a collective? I mean, how does that work?
Rachel?
We generally... We've been done quite well because we've done a bit of everything, haven't we? We've had sessions where we've read out our work, and there's a lot of those. Obviously, they frequently occur every couple of weeks. Somebody's reading something out and they get feedback. And also we've had guest speakers come in, writers and people from small book companies, and we had agents come in, Joe Ammons come in, and various we've managed an eclectic mix of guests, but we've also had plenty of time to do our own work and to get feedback and to talk about all sorts of things. We've had members of the group who've been writing a true story about the First World War, so we've been talking about research and how he's been over to research over to France, and we talk about everything really, anything to do with writing, and give feedback, and as I say, mixed in with guests, so it's the best of both worlds really.
Sounds great.
Yeah,
it really does.
Sorry, Al. It's not that it's unstructured. It is quite structured in the terms of, you know, we make sure that everybody gets a chance to participate. It's not a free for all. I mean, if it has to have, you know, a beginning and an end. Otherwise it would just be chaos. I mean, we like chaos, but controlled chaos is what we like even better.
I feel like, you know, when it comes to writing, you know, I spoke to authors for years, and I feel like am I right in saying, I guess, every author sort of has a plan, but life experiences and the chaos, like you said, and those kind of life experiences kind of bleed into that formula, that thing that you are creating. So sometimes you may segue into something you weren't supposed to segue, but it ends up becoming brilliant. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we both agree. We all agree on that. There comes a point. I mean, I am writing fiction as well, and what I love about it is the way that the characters start to misbehave, don't they? You know, you'll write something and they'll start to do things that you didn't expect, and that's kind of brilliant.
Yeah, and I can get that. I get that because I've heard the thing that everybody's got a book inside them. Everybody has got something they can sit and write. And I thought this, and I have this great story in my head. And I wrote my first chapter years ago, right? Years ago. I read the synopsis of what it's meant to look like. And then I wrote my first chapter, but being inside my head for that long was one of the most excruciating things I can ever I think I've never. Even today, I think about how I was trying to describe this bar, this room, this lounge, and how the glow of the fire was gently and menacingly licking the side of the guy's face. And I'm just like, being inside that space for me was excruciating. So I don't think writing's for me. Even though I've got good ideas, like putting them on page is difficult for me. How do you draw that out of someone?
Wow.
Yeah.
You go, Joe. You're the ringmaster.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know is the answer that I was going to give. I think the like I say, the way to do it is to, you know, if we're thinking of this through the lens of the lab, the way to draw it out of somebody is to give them the agency to let it percolate for as long as it needs, and then it can come out in whatever way. And that's why we have the work in progress sessions. An idea might come out as the first chapter of a novel, but then 3 months down the line, it might be a poem. You know, so that that's what the lab does. That's how we draw how people draw it out of themselves. I should say, really, is to say, you know, we all have these ideas. Great, how is it working for you? And then somebody else might be struggling with something in a similar way or in a different way, but I might have this ingenious method of what would you say, facilitating, you know, their work or drawing it out, and you know, which then inspires, you know, the first person to maybe try something different or try a different approach or something like that. Because there's no rules really, you know. I think there's no one way to write a book or a poem or a cartoon or anything like that. You know, the most important thing is having the ideas, and if you've got the ideas, then the rest is actually just technique. Yeah,
technique is really important, of course. Motivation is another one as well. Rachel, have you found that the Writers Lab and being around fellow writers that are aspiring to be, you know, amazing at what they do, has that inspired you, motivated you?
Definitely, because I think being a writer, it's strange. It feels a bit like it is having imaginary friends, isn't it? Lots of them, and you can feel a bit isolated and a bit, and it can sound a bit. Well, I'm lucky with my family. Actually, they're very supportive. But with some people, you know, you think, it could sound a bit make believe, because of course it is make believe. So it's a hard thing. So I think other people in the same situation, being able to talk to them, just automatically get it and understand and can support you, and it doesn't seem like a silly thing. They get the magnitude of it to you, and you can talk about it to them. And it sounds very pretentious, but it's true. It's just a place where you can somebody gets exactly what you're talking about. I suppose it's the same with anything, with anybody with a passion in life. If you meet someone with the same passion, then they automatically get the 360 degrees of it and understand you, and you can talk about it. It helps a lot.
Last night I went to an event at Highly Flammable. I listened to Alex McCarthy, who is a great business and life coach, and there were other people there, and we were talking about business and sort of like what you want to get out of it and stuff. And one of the things I got from it is a I mean, I was openly talking about things I worry about with the biscuit and stuff, but there were things that I worry about, and I felt dumb for worrying about them. But when other people voiced their worries and their concerns, I was kind of, oh, maybe I'm not that bad. Like, and there were people talking about things that I had in common and things that I was stressed about and stuff. And I guess that works the same with a writer's lab. You have a license to be creative, to be silly, and to be vulnerable, right?
Yeah. Important. That last word is very important, actually.
Vulnerable.
That's the most difficult thing, isn't it? Is opening up your thoughts, your soul, almost. In the presence of other people. So I think that's very perceptive, actually. Yeah, vulnerability. Yeah, very important.
Yeah.
Definitely, I'd say spot on. Yeah, that's exactly right. Because it does. Because I think it so often goes hand in hand. I think people assume if you do something like that, you feel very confident, and I don't particularly but it's something I'm passionate about, but I'm not necessarily confident in it. So I think it helps immensely to have people around who understand and get it, and as you say, get the vulnerability of it and to discuss everything. It's just somebody who just gets it, and to talk to them all is brilliant, and they're supportive.
That's really nice to hear. Joe, what's been like the highlights for you? Who are the people that have come through the Writers Labs that you are proud to talk about?
Look, I mean, everybody. I can't say that. I mean, it's everybody. I'm going to use the J word here. Everybody is on their own journey, and so some people have come to the lab and then gone on to do other stuff. Like we're talking before about Andy, who was researching his book about a First World War hero, a completely obscure guy who nobody else knew anything about, and now he's actually published something. And when he came to the group, very early days, he just had this idea to do this, to research this thing that he was interested in, and he's gone from that, which is basically an idea he had in his head, all the way through all the research, going abroad to the battlefields of Ypres and Belgium and everywhere, coming back, writing.
I want to speak to this guy. That sounds great. I love stuff like that.
Certainly put you in touch. He's an absolutely brilliant bloke. So something like that is just really inspirational for me, because it's kind of, it's not that we made him do that. It's that he had that and found the support within the group to enable him to then go on and have the confidence in the project to see it through to publication.
Sure.
That I'm very, very, very proud about. Something like that is really impressive, and kudos to him. And Steve Brotherton is another person who's affiliated with the group. I mean, he's on about his 5th book now. Louise Worthington's also been part of it. Of course, Stephen Palmer, with his constant success. It's really hard to say. I just love being there, and kind of setting things up, and then just sitting back and letting people, letting sparks fly, and letting people kind of talk and plan and scheme and collaborate. And it's the energy of it, the motivation and the momentum. Now we're at a stage where I think things are really starting to fly, and it's down to the group. It's always down to the group. Without those ideas, without the talent, and without the openness and humility in a lot of cases, it wouldn't be what it is, the lab, and we wouldn't have done the things we've done. So to single out individuals, yes, Tracy has been instrumental in some ways. Laura, Laura Bottomley from Raven Books has been very instrumental recently. Jude, is getting more and more involved. But it's because they value what that group is about and bring something to it, and the space is there for people to bring something to it. I have one rule of it, which is that you leave your ego at the door. Confidence.
No walking. I am a writer.
We've had a couple. I can tell you, we've had a couple, but they don't last long, because it just gets in the way of that beautiful communication that we have, and it's not fragile, but it's not. We resist quite heavily anybody who comes in with a big head and tells us how to do stuff, because we've all got our own individual wants and needs and thoughts and dreams and ideas, and they're the most valuable thing, and it's nurturing that we're about. It's not stomping about telling everybody how great we are, because the work will do that for us.
An ego is a dangerous thing, I think. I mean, okay, so I wouldn't say I've got an ego, but I'm very proud of the Shrewsbury Biscuit and what it's doing and the great things it does, right? At the same time, I have social anxiety, right? So them two fitting into each other don't really go very well. Like the event last night, we had to do our introductions. Hi, I'm Alex Whiteley, and I'm the host of the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. And a few people went, and looked back, and I was kind of like, inside, there's this guy going, yeah, and the other guy is going, oh.
No, absolutely. No, I completely identify with that, yeah.
Oh, it was so weird.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that with writers as well. I think a lot of it's an escape, isn't it? It's your other self. You get to say all the zingers and the one-liners that you wish you could in life, to make all the comments. I think it's very therapeutic, because what you were saying earlier on, I find, obviously you get times where you get writer's block and things you can't think what to write at all, but basically on the whole I find it very therapeutic, which says a lot, I'm sure.
Especially when you can write as an alias. If you write as an alias, you can put whatever you want in that book.
Definitely. It's like a superhero.
Speaking of superheroes, I was about to mention one of the best interviews I ever did on the Shrewsbury Biscuit was I interviewed Frank Whiteley, who's an artist for DC. Huge, like he's like a monolithic, and he's from Scotland, and his family, when it comes to back in the day, where he was a bit embarrassed to say he wanted to become an artist, and he didn't want to tell his parents, so he created this alias, and it's a play on quite frankly Frank Whiteley. And he went and did Judge Dredd and lots of the 2000 AD stuff, and that's what he went on. And now that name has gone on to become synonymous with some of the biggest comic book works in the world. And speaking to him and finding out about that, how he could hide under that alias and become this hero of comic books, it's just brilliant. I love that, the power of it all. Yeah, went on a rant.
That sounds brilliant.
As you mentioned, the work speaks for itself.
Yeah.
As Hunter Thompson used to sign off, res ipsa loquitur, which is the thing speaks for itself. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. But I do think also that on the flip side of it, one of the things that we're learning right at the minute, and I guess we're going to talk about the book in a moment, is that we do need, as writers, to be aware of the fact that, especially now, you have to be visible, you have to sell things, you have to be out there, you have to be doing signings, you have to be on social media, you have to bring yourself to the marketing of that piece of work, of that product. It's very rare that you get someone like Elena Ferrante, who nobody knows who she is, or Banksy, for example. They're the exceptions. It's impossible. It's great. There's a lot of great work out there that it doesn't reach you because the people are not effective with getting out there and selling it. And I much as I believe in the purity of art, of course I do. If nobody knows your work is out there, then nobody's going to read it. And it's very important to think about these things, to think about how you're going to present yourself as a writer, as a person who writes. Are you going to be someone who does loads of social media posts? Are you going to be a visual Instagram person? Are you going to be someone who tours a lot? Are you going to be all of these things? Are you going to be on the radio? Or are you going to do these things sort of under sufferance, but you're going to do them because they're important, and they're fun? I think they're fun, but it's difficult. It's a balance, and I think until you really are in that scenario of having something that's great that you want to get out to the world, it's really difficult to know how to do it. So yeah, that's another aspect of the lab that we try and talk about is, okay, where now? We've got this thing. What do we do with it?
I find that it's like another person, is it? It's like, because I find I'm not naturally very good at sort of pushing myself, so it becomes like another me. Like I started blog last summer, and then it's like it's the other me that goes, right, you've got to tweet this out to people you think might be interested, and then when you send something off, I'm always astounded that I can stand feedback, because I think in reality in life I'd be like, ooh, but it's like it's another me that comes there and gets feedback. It's very strange, but it's like somebody pushing me.
I did that last week, and it was with the episode I released. I did an episode with Shropshire supporting refugees. And it was really good. And I said to my wife, I was really nervous about it because, like, you know, when you talk about a subject that's polarizing as that, I was kind of like, oh my God, I really don't want to release this, but I do at the same time because I'm passionate about it. And I gave it to my wife. She doesn't listen to all my podcasts. She does sometimes, especially if it's someone she likes. And I was like, listen to this and tell me truthfully what you think about it. And I sent it to a couple of other people as well. And the general consensus I got was, the intro, because we do like a little bit, me and Verity, my co-host, will do like a little bit in between. So like, hi, welcome to today's episode. What you been up to, Verity? It was too long, apparently, which I get that. I was kind of releasing it as kind of like, oh, I know this. I can kind of claim that one already. And a couple of bit of critiques where if I'd have heard that a couple of years ago, I'd been like, oh! But I feel like as you go on, you sort of appreciate that kind of feedback, right? I think it's true.
Yeah. Definitely, because I was lucky. I went to, which is another thing I'd advise anybody who wants to write. I went to a BBC Writers Room thing at a comedy festival a few years ago, and I got speaking to somebody there, and he said, "Oh, well, I'm always willing to give feedback," and he has ever since given feedback, and it's really helpful, and it just makes such a difference. It's things you don't realize about yourself, and I can see the flaws, the places where I go wrong and the places where you go right. So it's just very helpful. I agree with you, and I think you do really well, actually, because this is another place where the lab helped me. When I was doing my degree, we had to do for our careers in literature module, we had to do an interview, and I decided to do as if you're pitching to a radio station. I was pitching to Radio Shropshire, and I had to do I was doing like different hobbies and around the town, and I had to find an organisation prepared to speak to me, and guess who spoke to me? Joe and members of the lab allowed me to interview them, so they're responsible for me getting my degree because they gave me a big help with that at Shrewsbury Uni, which was brilliant.
I'm going to claim the credit, but it was all you. You know, it was all you, really.
You were a good interviewee.
I'm glad it was useful.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because like the interview sort of process with anything. I mean, Joe, you'd be a great. You were very well experienced in that. Speaking to the stars that you have, the interview process is so much different to the conversation that you have. Like I always talk. I mean, when we had like Charlie Adlard come around my house, or when we have people in the studio back in the day, the conversation you have before you sit down and talk is usually the best bit. I feel like we should have a mic set up, like candidly, to get all that, you know, sneakily, because I feel like that's the best bit. Because I feel like when you're in front of a microphone or you're talking to the biscuit guy or the biscuit or whatever, you feel like, I don't know, there's always that sort of oh. I think that's the correct noise. You don't really want to be vulnerable in front of a microphone, but I think we should.
I agree. It's difficult, isn't it? Because you obviously you have to get the best quality of audio and video that you want, and you know, we all know that when you sit down to do an interview, you're doing an interview. But I think something like a podcast or you know, what you do is a better way to do it, really, because you get time to sort of stretch out and, you know, have a conversation, more of a conversation than, you know, often when you do an interview. You know, well, in my experience, when you do an interview with whoever, you know, pop star, whoever, you will get 15 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever, and you know what you need to get. They know they need to be on and give you some stuff to write about because it's part of their job. And so there's always bullet points you need to hit. And I'm not saying that's not the same in a podcast, but it's much more sort of friendly for everybody and much nicer an experience, because I'm really enjoying this, you know. And again, like the lab, it's talking about something that we're passionate about, which is writing and reading, and, you know, broadcasting, actually, as it happens, are very passionate about too. So it is an artificial situation, but, you know, you make the best of it, don't you?
I feel like you know, because I've been involved with radio as well, and it looks like I might be very soon. But I've always had this discussion about or because back in there, right, they were talking about podcasts going to take over radio, and I'm like, hold on a second, right? They're two completely different things. Like you talk about the long structured interviews where people can be a bit more vulnerable. I love throwing on a podcast that's a good hour and a half, 2 hours long, and listen to just that just relaxed conversation. I find that really, really nice. You can't do that on the radio, so they run parallel with each other. You're right.
I noticed the difference with that when I was doing my blog. The first person was kind enough to do a Zoom interview, and I ended up with so much more than I needed. And I thought, oh, this is such a shame to have to cut anything, because we were so relaxed and it became like a conversation. And as you say, it became more natural. And then the next person could only do a written one. And there's such a difference, as you say. Yeah. It's the conversation between the conversations and between the lines, and it just flows naturally. And you get more from people, I think, then. Well, I wouldn't know, you two know more.
Last weekend, I did a podcast with some guys in Georgia, in America. And then the day after, we sat and we had a couple of beers. And it was kind of a sweary, kind of bullshit kind of guys thing. Whereas the next day, I did a very short, it was like 15-minute interview for a radio station in New York. And that was kind of like... it was good. The guy was really good, and he was talking. But the difference is just so much better. And when we transfer that onto a page, onto a book, so that you have the short-handed poetry, or the short novel, or the long book, that you can really sort of spend your time sort of imagining and stepping into. What's more difficult, making the impact or building the story? I'll throw that to Joe.
I don't know. If I could tell you the answer to that, I would be a multi-millionaire.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends. Like I say, the idea is the thing. And I suppose the answer that I could give is that this is one of the things that comes up in the lab time and again. It's kind of, is this impactful, this thing that I've written in this form? Is this poem impactful in the form that it's in? Is it read better on the page, or is it something that is much better performed, or more suited to be performed? Yeah. It's so context dependent. It's so subjective, but it depends on what the idea is and what you see. When we individually read things for feedback, you often get a sense of. Well, you do get a sense of how people react to it, and there's your answer as to whether it's working or not. We also do a thing sometimes where we do a reader swap, where other people read out your work to you, right? And then you get a really good sense of how the ideas are coming, sort of filtered through their brain and their rhythm of the way that they I perform it, I guess. And then from that, you can wonder whether, I know what this is about, but does it come through when somebody else says it back to me? So there's myriad ways of trying to sort of square that circle that the eternal question that you just posed. Actually, we do our best.
Some of the, I mean, we were talking about Rick and Morty before we came onto the show. Yeah, there's a lot going on there that I'm very disappointed in. I'm kind of grieving. I'm going through a grieving process with that because there's lots of bad stuff going on with Rick and Morty. But I will always say the writing staff on Rick and Morty is some of the finest writing you'll ever see on TV. The short form stories that they write, you won't find anything anywhere else as good as that. They are great, and they're the people I'm supporting at the moment with Rick and Morty because they're brilliant. There's an episode called Morty's Mind Blowers where they do like 4 or 5 stories in one episode, one 25-minute episode. And each one of those stories is so compelling and so brilliant that it's kind of like, how can you find the ability to be that impactful in such a short space? It's just unbelievable. And I guess practice probably the best thing for you, and having that creative mind too. Rachel, when it comes to the Writers Labs and the help that you get from the people that are part of that, how many mistakes have you righted? How many sort of things have you learned, and how has it helped you on your trajectory to becoming a better writer?
So many different ways, really. It depends what it is that you read and what feedback. I found with sometimes it can even be that it's because, as I say, sometimes you lack confidence as a writer, and sometimes it can even be that's. I mean, we're always good at giving critique in a positive way, but sometimes it can even just be a positive thing. I remember the first time I read something out, back when it was Joanne Stephen, and I got positive feedback from my line, and even when it's not a critique, that's sometimes just something you need because you lack confidence in yourself. So it could be changing something, but it can even be that something doesn't need changing, which obviously doesn't happen very often. Often things need changing, but it can be so many things. It can be something positive, or it can be something that needs changing, or different points of view. And I often find the thing that I think is that I've made clear in a plot, I haven't. That's my biggest feedback I always get from things, is that I think I'm being clear, but I need to be even more clear. I need to spell things out even more. That's the thing I do a lot. That's my biggest flaw, I think.
Yeah, I think sometimes it pays to be a bit more direct with things, like me talking about the fire licking the guy's face. And,
I think it sounds intriguing.
Yeah,
I'd go with it. Yeah.
A very violent. I'll talk to you about it after we've hit record, because
come to the lab. Come and everybody is welcome. Come.
I think I've got my synopsis. I think it's still in my sock drawer. This drawer. We've moved house 3 times and it's still gone.
All the best stuff's in a sock drawer or shoved under a bed until you come back to it and look at it again.
The thing is, I'm so frustrated because it is a brilliant story that hasn't been told, that I think with characters I think were wonderful, but I just can't get into that space. I tried, and it was just so damn. Yeah.
You need to come to the lab, definitely. That's what it is.
The thing is, the difference is, actually thinking about it, is when I was writing that, I hadn't learned to meditate, and I hadn't learned how to be inside that. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about the labs very quickly, and then we'll move on to the book. The labs themselves are set at Shrewsbury Library, right? Let's talk about the format of the labs themselves. It's a group thing that people can turn up to. Is there a fee? Can anybody join? How's that work, Joe?
It's free. It always will be free. I don't believe that people should be paying to talk about their own ideas. Fundamentally, I think, a library is a very, very important thing now. It's one of the last bastions of a public community building, community service, where people can come and just be themselves and not have to buy anything. So no payment, not ever, and there never will be. And we have some pretty high level guests coming in, so it's you get a lot for your money, and free is a good price, right?
Of course.
But yeah, whether you've released 20 or 30 books like Stephen has, or nothing, or never, or the only writing you've ever done is a shopping list, you are welcome. Come down. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what your ideas are, and we want we want to see you kind of bouncing off those things, and maybe nothing happens with that idea that you have, but maybe you find a community of people that is your tribe, or your sort of supporters and cheerleaders, or just somewhere that is nice to be, to talk about writing and books. You don't really even have to write anything, not really. But yeah, I mean, it happens that everybody who comes to the lab does want to write something. There's no age limits. The youngest we've had in the group's about 15, 16. The oldest, probably in their 70s, I would say. There's no time limit on ideas. So, okay, the nitty gritty of it is every other Thursday at 5. It's not even Thursday, is it? Every other Tuesday.
Tuesday.
I get confused so easily. Every other Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. On site in Shrewsbury Library, there is a group of writers meeting to talk about triumphs, disasters, challenges, work, and everything in between, around a writing sort of kernel. I coordinate it from the library's point of view. So yeah, just email Shrewsbury Library and come down, and honestly, it's quite informal. That we never really do any writing in the sessions. That's the thing. It's too valuable a time to connect, to not waste it, but to spend it on writing exercises. You can do those at home. There's countless books of prompts and ideas and self-help books and things like that. So in the sessions, we get together, we meet, somebody will lead it and ask everybody just what they're up to. And if somebody's got some stuff to share, they will share it. And, it kind of runs that way. If we've got a guest, obviously myself or somebody else will interview that guest, and then we'll have a Q&A. We've done a few live events, and the lab also has, since lockdown, obviously, we had to find a way of doing the lab. So we did it on Zoom for a bit. And so now, technology permitting, I always try and provide a remote link, because often people are still shielding or simply unable to physically get to the library. It's much better when everybody's in the same room, of course. But, we live in 2023, it's obvious that you need that sort of hybrid event. And it's worked really well, actually.
Nice.
Yeah,
I'm glad that you're doing it.
It's very inclusive. There's no reason anybody couldn't come who wants to, which is the really important part of it.
I want to come, and I'm not even a writer. I just want to sit and listen to people talk. I think that sounds really, really nice.
Oh,
you are a writer now, that you've said. I mean, you obviously are.
I struggle with so like every single episode I release has a write-up on the so like when I struggle with that. Like some days I'm better than others, and if the subject's a bit easier to talk about, I can write like today Al was at Shrewsbury Library at the Writers Lab. He met so many great. I can do that, and but sometimes I struggle with that imposter syndrome and kind of like, are people going to think I'm dumb if I release this? Like there are so many things going on there. I do, like I said, I'm getting better at kind of accepting that. Stephen Marshall, Alex McCarthy, these are people that are helping me at the moment, sort of accept me for me and all that. No. But sometimes
that's important. Don't disregard that too much, because that's really important. It's look inside yourself. But I mean, we all have those thoughts. I think we all do, and don't be too diffident about what you do, because what you do is really good.
Yeah. Definitely. I think that's part of it. That proves you are a writer, because I think everyone has that. I definitely do. I think you often have imposter syndrome. You think, I'm playing with my imaginary friends. I'm not doing this, that, and the other. And I think everybody feels like that. And I notice particularly at the moment, everybody seems to feel like that. And that's why it's good to have a group to discuss it with and to have the positive feedback and to realize everybody else is the same. Because I think particularly in the current climate, I think everybody feels like that in every aspect of life, and it intensifies, I think, in whatever you're doing, and intensifies with already insecure writers. Most writers, I think, are insecure deep down.
One of the best teachers I ever had in school was I was taught by the great and powerful David Trumper, who is a great author about Shrewsbury books. I'd love to get him on the show. He's a very private person. I've been able to get in touch with him, but I remember he was very good at helping me in my writing journey as a child. I was year 5, year 6 in school. And I remember we had this riveting conversation about, can a comma come after and we would just have this amazing conversation, because like it would flow better if you could say and such and such, and he helped me so much. And there's always those people that when you think about writing and when you think about your journey as a writer. Sorry, I'm having issues with my tech right now. Of course I am. You can still hear me, right?
Yes.
Rachel, who was one of your biggest influences when it comes to writing and becoming an artist of words?
Oh, sorry, I was nodding because I always have trouble with tech, and it's usually me. That's where my head was going. I was going, no, that's normally my problem. Oh, well, I have. It's strange because the way I write, you wouldn't automatically see the connection, but I think that the connection is in human nature and how people relate to one another. Because Jane Austen, from a very young age, that's the type of thing I write about in my blog, but it's not normally the kind of writing I write. But I think you would look at things, because I tend to write scripts and comedy, although in the book I've written a poem, which is unusual because I don't usually write poetry. But I think the influence is there because she observes society, and society doesn't change, and people, and there's a lot about class. And as my English university lecturer used to know, I always used to come back to class. And you'd know it if you looked at my poem. It's very much that type of thing. But I think she had such a way of observing people, and she could tell a story and make a point about women in society and entailing, but do it in such an entertaining way that no one knows what she's doing. And that's the thing I've taken from her. I always aim with my writing, I want to be able to get a point across, but in a way that's so entertaining that no one knows I'm doing it. That's my aim. I don't know if I achieve it, but that's what I always want to do.
That sounds great. Yeah, I totally get that. I totally get that. You know, when there's somebody that has such a positive aura about them in a really good way. One of my favorite broadcasters is Chris Moyles. Like, I love him. I think he's fantastic because he's just Chris Moyles. Always has been. Hasn't been any different. And that's not who I aspire to be. I aspire to be Alex Whiteley, but with a hint of whatever he had. What about you, Joe? Growing up as a writer or as a journalist, is there someone that sort of inspired you coming up?
Yeah, I went through phases. I was really, really into, you know, the beats. So Kerouac and Ginsberg and people like that. And, you know, I've reread that quite recently and have an entirely different viewpoint on it because, you know, when you're 18 or 16, 17, 18 and you think, wow, you know, on the road, imagine that, just going around America and not caring and all of these magical things. And then I read it when you know, about 5 or 6 years ago and I thought, what are these kids doing? They're just leaving this trail of chaos with no responsibility for what they're doing to people, you know, which is also true. But then, you know, I guess I've gone through my favorite authors, you know, Douglas Adams and Kurt Vonnegut, probably, Joseph Heller. And, you know, the one of my actual real heroes of writing is a cartoonist called Davy Jones, who writes for Viz, and he does all this incredibly beautifully observed surreal satire. He does things like, you know, Depeche Mode's Adventures at the Bottom of the Sea and stuff like that, and these really weird things, and it's just one of the most incredibly well constructed, brilliantly written. Because, you know, obviously within one page to say so much about society, really, and also make you laugh hysterically. And he's a fantastic cartoonist anyway, but he's one of my favorite writers of all time. And I think he deserves to be up there, you know, with Vic and Bob and all people like that, you know.
Yeah.
And I love Stuart Lee as well. I think Stuart Lee's a great writer. I'm a lot more into, I will finish this point.
No, I love this. This is great. Keep going.
You know, my sort of obsession with music is starting to morph into an obsession with comedy now and stand-up. I don't think I'd ever do it. I mean, I wouldn't ever do it. But the craft of that and the writing and the callbacks and the layered nature of that, it's an incredibly technically demanding discipline. And then to deliver all of that whilst appearing like, you know, like, for example, like Eddie Izzard, like he's coming off the top of his head, or her head, I should say. It's a phenomenal thing. It's a writing discipline that I really admire deeply.
I completely agree.
It's good at that too, you know.
I completely agree, because I've been to many comedy festivals, and as you say, and I try to write comedy. It's predominantly, although you wouldn't know it from this book, this isn't, but usually it's predominantly comedy I write. But I think you can make a lot of points, and the similarity, although you wouldn't put Kurt Vonnegut necessarily with Jane Austen, there's an observation of society and wit that is, I think there is similarities, a satirical look at society and a way of changing things. And I think that's the same with comedy. And although, as I say, the things I write are very different to Jane Austen, it's got the common thing of, I think with comedy, you can entertain people and then they're drawn into the characters and they love them and they laugh if you're doing it right, hopefully. And then you can make your point and you can say something about society, I think. And I think comedy's, I'm like you, I'm completely obsessed with comedy. I think it's so clever.
I think it helps when you understand the person. I mean, like, I'm a big fan of Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer. They're two of the biggest stand-ups in the world. But they're kind of like the people that'll say a joke and you go, oh, afterwards, you know. And I listen to their podcast an awful lot. Every week I'm there, bam. And Tom Segura makes all these jokes about how rich he is and all the paupers and all stuff. But that's because he really appreciates where he is in life, and he can make those jokes. And like, if you listen to that, not knowing who Tom Segura is and what he's like, you'd be like, "Oh, that's a really nasty thing to say." But when you realize how much he appreciates the position he's in and how he loves what he's done and how proud he is, you're kind of like, oh, "Okay, he gets away with it," you know.
I met. Oh, sorry, Joe.
No, it's okay, Rachel.
I was just going to say I met Rosie Jones and Heidi Regan at the Aberystwyth Comedy Festival, and she's a prime example of that. The things that she's able to say, because I've got to help one of myself, and the things that she's able to say and talk about. And she, funnily enough, you were talking about comedy and writing. Her and Heidi Regan, particularly Heidi Regan, the comedian, said they didn't want to be a comedian, but they had writing and they couldn't get it out there any other way. And they kept saying to me, "You're going to have to become a stand-up," but I don't think I am.
I think what we're talking about is universal truths. If you don't have things that people can identify with, then whatever discipline it is, your project is sunk.
Universal truth. They're back to Jane Austen again.
No, right, and that's you're absolutely right to say that Austen and Vonnegut and Davy Jones or whoever or Stuart Lee or they share that. They're talking about life. Armando Iannucci, what a writer he is. Oh, brilliant. Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah. He's practically like a documentary writer now, though. You can't satire it nowadays, can you?
He did a suite of poems about the lockdown. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but that's come out quite recently. That's actually all right. It's got the sort of biting satire and comedy in it, but actually it's quite beautiful, some of it as well.
And they invented the term omnishambles, which is so appropriate.
I love it when satire is so real you don't realise it's satire. There's so much about that in Facebook I don't think with social media, I don't think it works the way it should do, because people are like, "Oh my god, why is he doing that?" And then the comments are getting really riled up, and you're like, "No, it's a bit. They're doing a bit. You need to calm down, relax, please."
I remember the bit that they had. That was a Mando again, when they had the bit where the clock broke in the countdown to the 2012 Olympics, and then it did, and it was just writing itself. It really is life imitating art.
Charlie Brooker again, with Black Mirror, and we don't need to go too much into that, but it involves pigs and prime ministers, doesn't it?
Go and watch Black Mirror.
Oh, you know me, Joe. I'm never political.
Just make sure the kids are out the room when you're watching Black Mirror. Seriously, it's amazing. Talk about writing. Honestly, yeah, Charlie Brooker. I don't like him as a person, though. Is that weird to say?
I was just going to say Diane Morgan, just coming off the back of that. Who's filming? She's a wonderful writer. Brilliant observational sort of satirist, and Kathy Burke, what a writer she. There's so much talent in the UK. It's kind of crazy. And he's not from the UK, but Nigel Ung is, and his characters that he plays, and he's quite an edgy comedian, or his comic persona is the same with Elliot Steele. Mark Steele's lad, who is very sort of edgelordy on the surface, but actually very thoughtful. And Michael Odewale and all these people coming through. There's so much out there to be inspired by. And to just laugh at on the bus on the way to work.
You were saying about not liking Charlie Brooker. I think that sometimes is the case, though, isn't it? Because, like with Jane Austen, I don't think I probably wouldn't have liked her if I'd have met her. Although I might have done. I think it's just a case of her speaking, because sometimes she was so biting. I think I'd have liked her, but I'd have been slightly fearful of what she might have said when I left the room. I think it's often the case, isn't it? You can spill out your inner self with writing that might not. I mean, I think the person that I write and the person I am probably quite different.
Yeah, no, I've got a lot of time for Charlie Brooker. I think he's genuinely a good bloke.
I need to reword what I said. I find him dry and I find him difficult. It's not that I don't like him. He used to do a show, didn't he, on TV, and he was kind of like really dry in the way he would deliver things. And for me, I don't always find that funny. Sometimes I struggle with that. That's my own perception. But as a writer, I think the guy is up among the gods. Like Black Mirror is just phenomenal. So yeah,
it is phenomenal.
Yeah. Let's talk about the book, guys, because the Writers Lab has created a book that you can buy, folks.
Where's the camera? There we go. Look at the lighting. I've got terrible lighting. There we are.
There we are. I've got a picture here as well, which you guys sent. The new book, Where We Are, a collection of original prose, poetry, and magical new writing from the Talented Lab, which is available at Raven Bookshop, up in the best market in the UK, which has just been voted the best UK market, Raven Studios, and it's only a tenner, guys. And this is a collection of you guys from the Writers Lab, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we're talking about how it collectively came across. Now, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Rachel came up with the concept when we were talking about it, weren't we?
Yes, I did. Because we were all talking, weren't we? There were discussions as to whether it would be local, about local issues or national issues. And I thought that where we are incorporated both, it could be a geographical sense or as a society, it incorporated everything. So it was a wide, which was fitted, it's symbolic really of the group. It was
Offers
a
a
wide spectrum of
perspective, I
things.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the genesis of it was, I think we started talking about it in about September, October last year, which is not that long ago, really. It seems like a long journey we've been on, but I thought that the lab collectively was ready to tackle a big project, basically, and I think the lab all were of that opinion already, but it just the only thing I did was kind of like light the touch paper sort of thing and let everybody's energies come together into a project.
Joe underestimates himself. He's a total ringleader in a good way, in a democratic way, but he does so much and tries so hard. Like in between all the sessions, Joe will send you opportunities that are coming around, and he's always very accommodating to make sure everybody's included and very inclusive.
Well, thank you. Yeah,
nice.
I do try. Nice. And the good thing about, sending emails around when you're at work is because it looks like you're really busy when all you're doing is you're just browsing Twitter to find these things, but don't tell my boss. Anyway, so we had this idea, and I knew, so one of the things I used to do when I was a kid, when I was in, doing bands a bit more actively and things like that, I used to do fanzines and stuff. So I'd pull these things together, and sometimes it'd have lots of different writers in, and so I'd get these things and just literally cut and paste them from typewritten stuff, and then sort of sneak into either somewhere I was working or somewhere one of my friends was working to get them photocopied, and then you sell them at gigs. Basically, this is kind of no different, really, but the production values are very high. One of the very important things was, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it so it stands. You can put it alongside any of these 40,000 books that we've got in Shrewsbury Library, and it will look as good as we can make it, and stand alongside that. And you won't go, oh, this is a little local thing that local people have done, and it's hard and it's cute.
This is a nice pamphlet. Yeah,
this is an important piece of work that has high production values, right? So then, once we decided on the concept, I then set the deadlines, because obviously you need to work backwards from publication to see when you need to get the copy, when you need the cover design, when you need all of these things to send them off to the printers. And so within the group, we had Linda designed it, and it looks fabulous. The pages look great. There's loads of lovely white space on it. It looks lovely. There's great font she's used. Sally Warner, another author who you may have come across, has done the cover art. Rosie Corner did the logo for us on the back. Laura was very heavily involved with logistics and bouncing things off. Laura Bottomley, and obviously I sort of edited it in terms of pulling it together. Laura proofed it as well. Actually, I must say that. And we did it all ourselves, and we all have lives. It's a bit easy. It was a bit easier for me because my job at the library is to do this, right, as amongst other stuff. So I was able to have the time to chase around. So that was good. But all of those aspects that go towards making a book out of nothing, we did it all ourselves. The only thing we didn't do was physically print it. And we were going to at one stage, but then we found a place called Mixam, which actually Sally suggested, which was very affordable for us. And I kind of went to my brilliant boss, Catherine Berry, and said, is there any money anywhere? And she managed to find, it wasn't a lot of money. I'm not going to say how much it was, but it was not, a couple of days worth of work money. And off we did. And we got it before Christmas, which was really important too, because I think everybody wanted it before Christmas. And it's beautiful. I'm very proud of this.
You should be. You all should be.
I hope everybody is. Yeah.
Yeah. You sent me a copy of the book. I really can't wait to read it, genuinely, because I feel like this could be your calling card. This is your business card. This is like you saying, there's an opportunity that, because there's 19 members of your group have added to this their own poets and little bits and inserts. Here's what we can do. Here's what we're capable of, and you can be too, right?
Absolutely. 100%. And like I say, this is the beginning of it, right? As we mentioned earlier, it's now we're learning we need to sell it. But also, as you say, a calling card. There's some competitions or publishers or whatnot. They won't accept work unless you've had something published already. Well, that's this. That's one reason to do it. I mean, the main reason is because the writing, the talent was so good that we had to get it out somehow. And I don't believe that there's any need to wait for permission to do good things. I think, and this proves, and the lab proves, we've got it in ourselves. We've got the energy and the belief and the talent. So let's do it. Why? Who are we waiting for? We don't have to ask for permission from a publisher or an agent, something like that. We've got this stuff. Okay, who can design it? Right, we'll do that. Who can do cover art? Okay, we'll do that. When do we need it by? We need it by then. Right. There were times when I was tearing my hair out, of course.
That's why I'm laughing, because there was emails from Joe. He was trying to herd cats going, we need this by Christmas.
It was a little bit, because if you let deadlines slip, you miss Christmas. I mean, that's what happens.
That's why you're the ringleader.
Experience for everybody, including me, because but now we've got this. This is the beginning. This is the beginning. It's a brilliant book, and you can dip in and out of it as a reader as you please, and it's so diverse in the content and approach. But it's both a sort of avatar for us, and also, just maybe the first little indication that something is happening in the Shrewsbury Library Writers Lab. So get involved and get on it.
One of my catchphrases on the Shrewsbury Biscuit over the last 4 years has been "There's something in the water." And that's not a political stance on what is actually in the water, by the way, folks, because that would be completely wrong. What I'm saying is Shrewsbury is so lucky to have such a creative backdrop. There's so many amazing creatives in Shrewsbury. And I'm not surprised you managed to put this amazing book together because of what I've learned over the last few years. And I'm proud. This is great. Guys, it's called Where We Are. And you can buy it from Raven Bookshop at the market for £10. Please go and buy it. It looks amazing, sounds amazing. I can't wait to read it. Joe, what I'll finalize this with: how can people join the Writers Lab? I know you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but let's reiterate where, if people want to join the Writers Lab and be part of projects like this, or be part of a collective that are as helpful as they can be when it comes to writing, how do they do that?
Okay, just contact Shrewsbury Library. So you can come in, you can leave your details at the desk. I'm not there every day, so somebody will take them and pass them on. Or you can email shrewsbury.library@shropshire.gov.uk. We're at Shrewsbury Library at Shrews Library UK on Twitter and Facebook. We're also YouTube Shropshire Libraries. Phone up, just get in touch and come down. You don't need to come to every session. We have people who come for half an hour and then have to go and do something else. Yeah, that's cool. Come down when you can. The main thing is we're always there every 2 weeks. So, it's not school. You don't have any homework, and you won't need to do any reports or deep analysis of literature or something like that. It's not that kind of thing. Come down, meet some cool people, and basically just give yourself permission to explore your writing ideas. And it's all about ideas. So come down. Sometimes we even have chocolate.
Oh. I've just started the keto diet way of life, the keto way of life. It's not a diet. Okay. And last night at Alex McCarthy's thing, I sat on the back bench, the back table, and they put the cake in front of us. They were like, "There's cake at the back," and I was kind of like, "Yeah, right here. There's cake right here." It was hilarious.
And you're there with your sausages and bacon, yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what? It works for us, and I've eased back into it. It's no problem. Are you guys working on anything at the moment that you want to tell listeners about before we get out of here? Rachel, are you working on a book or a thing that you want to tell people about?
I'm working on a few things because I think it sort of pays to diversify and try different things. So I'm working on a script, which is a comedy, and the heart of it, when they always say what's it actually about rather than the plot, the heart of it is about community and the importance of community and how it might be being broken up. And I've also got another thing a couple of things that are update of classics, which I've got my own take on comedies again. And then I'm doing my blog, which by contrast is about things like the classics. And also, you were saying about cartoons, not that I'm working off you. I also had an idea which bizarrely popped into my head for a comic book, but God knows what I'm going to do with that because I've got no idea, which is ridiculous because I'm in Shrewsbury, which is the centre of all these things, so I should know. But so you could say a few things.
Wonderful. Joe, have you got anything you want to plug?
No, well, I've got to go and buy my books. There's loads of them online. Go and buy them, please. I'm about to sign a contract for a book, quiz book, and that's an exclusive actually. So the Shrewsbury Biscuit about to sign a contract for a quiz book that'll be coming out in the autumn. There'll be at least one other book from me probably in 2023. And I'm working on fiction, and I'm working on a football book as well, and some music with some people, and it seems like there's loads going on. I always feel lazy, but maybe I'm just not. No, I don't know. I feel very fortunate to be able to pursue these things. Actually,
That's a writer's thing, though. You always feel, as we were saying earlier, you always feel like the amount of writers you speak to, that's why it's good to have a group to talk to support you, who feel that they're not doing enough. When actually, if you talk to another person, like I spoke to another one of the writers the other day, they went, well, you're doing loads, but you don't feel somehow that you are, which is ridiculous, which is why it's good to have support and people to talk to. Joe's book, Would You Rather, is very entertaining. We played it at Christmas. It helps with those family occasions. And I look forward to a quiz, Joe. I love a quiz.
Thank you. Well, that's
I feel like there's like a huge opportunity here, I feel like, with the Writers Lab and the Shrewsbury Biscuit as a collab. It's very dangerous for me to have ideas. But bring like Joe or a representative from the Writers Lab to introduce a new writer. Do you know what I mean? Every now and again, just bring in someone to be like, okay, this is someone from the Writers Lab. They're about to release this thing, introductory, talk about the idea, sell the book. I mean,
sure.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
We can talk about all sorts of stuff. If you want to do some kind of event, live broadcast, we can talk about that. If you want to do something around the Where We Are book, it's only, like I say, ideas, just chuck them at us. And if we can make them happen, we'll do it.
Absolutely. That's where dreams come from. Fantastic. You guys have been absolutely wonderful guests. We put this together just last night and yesterday. So thank you so much for coming on short notice. A huge shout out to Tracy Morgan as well. I haven't met her yet, so we're going to meet up for a coffee, I think, and discuss. I definitely think there's potential here because I love speaking to authors. I love getting inside that big brain of theirs and taking a walk around. This has been really, really wonderful. So thank you so much for joining me. Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. And guys, by the way, I'm going to play the outro. Stick around because I'll say goodbye to you properly. Is there anything else you want to add before we go? Actually, I should probably do that.
I think you should come along to the lab with your writing. I was going to say.
Come to the lab. Come to the lab.
What do you think, Joe?
Come to the lab and thank you. And don't be afraid of just coming along. And if it's not for you, you don't have to come again. You don't have to sign a contract. You don't have to sell the soul to the devil.
Yeah. It sounds great, and it's on a Tuesday, which I normally work. But I just stumbled across. I didn't sort of put my toil into my. So I work every bank holiday, so I work on a Monday, and I haven't put that in my diary in work. So they're like, "You've got like 3 weeks to take off between now and March, Alex." So I might be able to come soon. So that sounds really cool.
Oh, great!
Look forward to it.
Right, okay, thank you guys for listening. Give us a like, give it a share. If you've got any comments, drop them in, and thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.